Here with you and Ross Scott in Atlantic City. What was the date of that?
This was, I came out of retirement the first time. I hadn't been doing any training, hadn't been doing any sparring. I didn't think any of the karate people had gotten proficient enough with their hands. What I'm doing here is just sort of move around. He's staying pretty much in a karate stance and just trying to keep his hands up. My problem with this particular match was I didn't throw my, there were no rules for this fight. I'm sitting in the dressing room waiting to come out for the fight, and Ross Scott's corner people come in and demand a 6 kick per round rule, which I broke, and subsequently defaulted a fight there as a result. And
you also had some problems with your shoulder in this fight.
Real big problems. They still hurt to this day. I refuse to get an operation on my shoulder. I threw a looping right hook in the second round and my shoulder went out, and it went out on me 5 times in this particular fight. And I think back in the days of Mike Stone when he dislocated his shoulder fighting Vic Moore. Matter of fact, it was this particular night he fought Vic Moore. And just before, I mean not this particular fight, the fight with Greg Baines, he dislocated his shoulder and he walked out of the ring. And of course, remember Sonny Liston dislocating his shoulder and refused to come off the bench. But my corner people always told me about there was only one rule when you're fighting, that is never quit. And I said as long as I got one arm, I'll keep fighting.
Well, having wrecked a motorcycle myself and fractured and dislocated my shoulder, I cannot imagine continuing to fight with a dislocated shoulder.
It's pretty painful, but once you get into that psychic mode, you get sort of a fluid state of consciousness, you just don't feel any pain. He was real awkward for me to fight. He'd start throw a front kick and I'd sort of duck, try to smother it, and his knee would come up and hit me square in the face. And I ended up with, I think, 2 black eyes out of this particular fight.
Well, I know you having refereed Ross a couple of times myself. In fact, he lost both times I refereed him when he fought Demetrius Edwards.
That was the old Oak Tree Edwards.
Right, Demetrius Oak Tree Edwards. I noticed that in the ring right there is where...
There's an example where he starts to throw a kick and I try to block it and smother it, and I catch the knee right on the nose, and that doesn't feel too good.
I know that he doesn't look like it, but when he throws those kicks, when you're in the ring with it, you can tell there's a lot of power and momentum behind those kicks.
I sparred him years ago in Dayton, Ohio. Glenn Keeney used to bring him to my seminars when he was just a green belt, and he was a pretty tough old boy back then. And basically that's how he won his fights. He was just stronger than his opponents. He didn't beat him with technique. We're often taught when you go into a fight, you concentrate on 3 things. Number 1, you want good technique. Good technique will help you begin the fight. It'll help get you into the fight. In other words, it'll help you start the fight. And number 2, you need that, what they call guts. In other words, that's good physical conditioning, good stamina. In other words, what keeps you in the fight, what will enable you to stay in the fight. There I dislocated my shoulder, taking me over to the corner and see if they can put it back in. And number 3, in Okinawa I was taught one rule: never quit. I don't believe there's any such thing as winning or losing a fight. You either finish it or you don't. And since you can't kill the person in front of you, how can you really tell who won the fight? So the 3rd thing you want to concentrate on is what they call heart. And very few people know what I mean when I say put your heart into it. And heart is what you need to actually finish a fight.
I remember watching this tape before, and you hit him one time, I don't remember with what, but he actually spun around 360 degrees.
It was a left hook, I think, in the 5th round.
You've hit him some pretty good shots here.
My problem was my right arm was dead on me, and it was just basically hanging by the end of the fight. I couldn't block with it or anything, and I think the last, I've never seen this tape before, last couple of rounds I couldn't even throw the right hand. There was a couple of photographers who would shoot pictures of him throwing a punch at my head, and as I would jerk my head to the side, my hair would flare off. And then I remember seeing in some magazines some captions underneath the photograph: Ross Scott hitting Joe Louis. He never hit me once with a punch, but he got me with a couple of knees in the face. See, that's why I would advise young fighters, if you're going into the fight, my shoulder goes out again.
Yeah, you hit him with a right hand and it went out.
Yeah, I shouldn't have been throwing that right hand. If I were smart, I just should have walked out of the ring, but I'm not a quitter. That's my trainer, Joey Orbilo, in there from Long Beach, California.
Well, I think obviously completing this fight in that kind of pain with a dislocated shoulder, having experienced that myself, but never during a fight, is a real testimony to your courage.
Well, the problem is it messed my arm up for life. I can still only punch with like 90% of my speed now, but that's still pretty good. I just never wanted a doctor cutting a hole in my body and leaving a scar on my shoulder. I've seen a lot of people have their shoulders operated on. Basically what I'm trying to do here is move a lot, give him a moving target, make it difficult for him to hit me. I didn't want to waste time blocking the kicks. I was just trying to move and make him miss. Move and make him miss, trying to slip. Trying to draw him into the corner, come out with a couple left hooks. I do remember one thing his corner people were telling him during the fight: just keep your hands up, keep your hands up. They tried to tell him, stay on the outside, don't try to outbox me. In those days, I don't think there was any karate man alive that could outbox me, because I had been boxing for quite a while, working out at Long Beach Boxing Center.
Seaside Gym?
Yeah, Seaside Gym.
I remember that.
And once in a while I'll go to the Main Street Gym, go over there and look at Hoover Street Gym, and over there at the Teamsters Gym, but I predominantly worked out down at the Seaside Gym down in Long Beach, California.
I remember going down there with you one time, and there was
I
a
think
big
my shoulder
black guy.
went out again. They went
Yeah.
out there checking.
It was a big black guy. He was a challenger, a contender, one of the heavyweight contenders who who came in to work out, and you ended up working out with him for a while. And that was the first time I had seen you with someone with boxing skills, and it was very impressive.
Well, Mondo Ramos, I think, was the lightweight.
Right there, 360-degree, spun him around.
We'll see if my right hand had been available or accessible when he spun around after the left hook. I would have come back with my shoulder goes out again, I guess. 5 times is pretty painful.
I can imagine.
And I think on 2 occasions when it went out, it popped back in before I was able to get assistance. But
I know what.
thing is, if you maintain that poise and that composure and execute what we call a good psychological judgment when you're out there fighting, people don't really realize that you're in that pain, and it keeps your opponent psychologically off balance, so his momentum, his psychological intensity doesn't build against you. You start acting like you're tired. Like, I didn't train for this particular fight. I just didn't think anybody could stand more than 2 rounds with him. As a matter of fact, up until this particular fight, I had knocked out everybody I'd ever fought inside of 2 rounds. And well, Ross had a pretty good jaw, and he just didn't want to go down. As a matter of fact, I think he told me before the fight, all he wanted to do is my shoulders out again. Yeah, I'll see if the referee can pop it back in for me. He told me before the fight, all he wanted, he said, I know I'm not going to win, all I want to do is look good.
This is in Atlantic City, New Jersey. What casino was this in? Do you remember?
It was at the convention center there, right on the boardwalk. So he could come in with the kicks pretty good. He just had no success with the hands. He needed a year or 2 to work on his hands, and I think subsequently he went down to a boxing gym and learned how to work his hands fairly well. There he's just pretty much slapping.
I know he ended up, in fact, in Los Angeles working out and training out there for a while.
He had a pretty good jaw, but when you got a dislocated right shoulder, it's very difficult to get the proper torque. And you're, see there, I'm slapping now with a left hook because I can't torque because of the sore right shoulder. Plus, I got to admit, I was pretty tired there since I didn't train for this fight. You notice I'm not kicking a great deal. There's not a lot of sting and bite on my kicks, but I was surprised he was still standing. Might remind you, if you any young fighters coming up, don't ever go into a fight without training, because that audience will pick up on it, and they'll sure turn against you right in the middle of the fight, and that works against you also.
Mm-hmm.
And you start going back to your corner, and your corner man says, "Well, Joe, I'll meet you in the dressing room after the fight. I'm not going to be here at the end of the next round." That was one of Joe Bill's old pet peeves. He did that, I think, at the end of round 5 in this particular fight. He said, "Joe, I'm going to go back to the dressing room. I'll meet you after the fight."
Good old Joe Bill.
I think my shoulder's out, and I'm just trying to cover, waiting for it to pop back in, hopefully.
Well, he has a lot of power in those kicks, you can tell. Just the mass behind his legs, getting them going.
Well, he played football, and I think he told me he could do a 600-pound squat at one time, which is pretty powerful. I imagine that's a half squat. I don't think any karate man do a full 600-pound squat. I once did
That's
a
Joe Bill talking to the referee.
450-pound front squat, but I never tried it on the backside. Somebody punched me in the center of my back when I was in the Marine Corps, and I quit doing the Olympic lifts to save my back. Now those are what you call desperation shots. You can tell when someone's desperate, and I think I was thinking about the party after the fight here and saying, "What am I doing out here?" In other words, now the karate community is pretty much using my reputation. I had established a sport by now, and I had gotten it on national television in 1974 in the wide world of entertainment. It played in about a third of the world, and I turned down some film contracts and stuff, and now I'm making a comeback here. I don't know why I did it. It certainly wasn't for the money or the glory.
Yeah.
As you can see, there's nothing glamorous about what we're doing out there, but you notice my right hand is fairly dead at this point. It's just hanging. I remember looking at my right arm from the elbow down, it was just numb. And I couldn't move well with his kicks anymore, and my right arm was just taking a beating at that point.
Yeah, about now, I guess you're probably thinking, when is this fight going to be over with?
I'm sitting here now watching this, first time I've ever seen this tape. I do remember, the reason I remember this, I'm sitting here going, how did they give him this fight when I'm watching how many times I'm hitting him?
Right.
And then, this is in the Philadelphia area, and I went down to Joe Frazier's gym at the time when Joe Frazier was the heavyweight world boxing champion, and met his family and watched him work out with Dwayne Bobbick and some of the other guys. And Joe Frazier came up to me and put his arms around me, hit me on the chest and said, "You've got a real good body. I'm glad to see you." He sent his family down to, they're sitting ringside, and Muhammad Ali sent